What's the most important thing you have ever overslept? A close friend's funeral. I knew when and where it was. Had my alarm set and had my clothes picked out, but worked late the night before and had trouble dozing off, so I popped a few Tylenol PM and went out like a light. Next thing I know, I wake up and it's way past the funeral. I still feel terrible about it to this day. This hurts just reading. I'm sorry for you and the loss of your friend. The final for my justice course. I woke up with about 10 minutes left to the exam period. Fortunately for me, something had happened at my home, about 30 minutes away, which caused my mother to call the cops. I was able to use this as an excuse and hurry from home to the exam, and they then let me take it the next day. Dang, that's some good timing on your mom. I once as a child had to take sleeping pills cause of some medical disorder which wouldn't let me fall asleep. My mom woke me up because I forgot to take the pills. Wake up, you need to sleep. The most important was a funeral for which I was to be the organist. The power had gone off during the night, altering the setting on my alarm clock. Fortunately, the undertaker called with a special music request from the family and woke me up in the nick of time. When I arrived at the church, the pallbearers were carrying the coffin to the front doors. I managed to turn the organ blower on just as the minister announced the opening hymn. Well, that was a more thrilling story than I thought an organist could tell. Senior year high school, pulled an all-nighter editing together my final project for film class. Friend and I wrote and shot a movie. Finished just in time to get to school that morning to turn in the project and take the final exam. Went home and fell asleep. Dart right through the spring musical. As a part of chorus that was a big part of our grade, I believe, and all my family was there. I was blissfully asleep until my mom got home wondering where I had been. Homemade ice cream. What kind of cruel bastards wouldn't wake a kindergartner up after nap time when they have someone coming in to make ice cream? If we ever meet, I'll make you ice cream. Law school exam. First semester. In law school, your entire grade for most classes is only the final exam. I have a particularly bad habit of not studying all semester and pulling all-nighters the day or two before exams to cram a semester's worth of material into my head. On the morning of one of my finals my first year, I woke to a text from a classmate asking where the frick I was as the exam started in 15 minutes. Panicked, I raced to the administrative office, because you get cards with a series of numbers to use as your name on exams, to ensure all exams are anonymously graded, and, naturally, I hadn't gotten my card yet. However, the nitwit woman at the office wouldn't give me my anonymous card, stating that I had an unpaid parking ticket that first needed to be paid. I hadn't brought my wallet with me, but had brought my license, which I offered to leave as collateral, promising to pay it once the exam was over. She rolled her eyes and told me tough luck, should have planned better. Already in a panic, stressed about exams, not ready to accept I had caused this entire problem myself, and disbelieving that I was going to miss an exam due to this woman's lack of basic empathy, I lost it. She gave me my card. I was banned from entering the office unless 2 people were on staff, though. Sounds like she's a freaking prick. My final. It started at noon. I woke up and checked the time, it was 2. I was super peed myself, so I got out of bed and punched something. That something was my dorm room window. It shattered and made a pretty nasty laceration in my arm. I went to the ER, stitched it up and asked the doctor for a note stating I was there that day. Got the note, showed it to my prof and the laceration. He gave me a B. Not bad. This one is my favorite. Everything went perfectly right and totally wrong at the same time. Mother's Day. I had all these things planned. Went to sleep. Woke up 17 hours later to a family member knocking on my front door to check up on me. My phone had died and no one was home to wake me up. No idea why I had slept that long. I didn't even stay up late. Only happened once. So freaky. Fell asleep on a train in South Korea, traveling from Seoul to Kyumi City. Normally a 3-hour trip. Thankfully, I woke up as the train was leaving the station, as I would never known that I passed my stop. I thought I'll just get off at the next stop and jump on the train traveling in the opposite direction. 45 minutes later I get off at a station that looks like a warehouse and is stationed in a valley. Think middle of nowhere and you're close. Tracks are exiting the station in 12 directions. There's only one employee there and he can't speak English. The train schedule is printed on the wall and it is all in Korean. I had once applied to be a 911 operator in the county I was living in. Prior to being hired, during the pre-screening interview process, you have to submit to a polygraph exam at the local sheriff's department, FBI office, or state-level bureau of investigation. I live in Georgia, so I had to go to the GBI office near Atlanta. My poly was supposed to have been at 2:30 p.m. You have to be there early or on time, to the minute. Otherwise the examiner will leave, and you won't get the poly. I took a short nap that afternoon, intending to wake up at 1 p.m. MapQuest told me it would take 30 minutes to get there from where I lived, but knowing traffic in the Atlanta area, I wanted to give myself extra time. I woke up at 2 p.m., drove to the GBI headquarters, and got there at 2:35 p.m. Needless to say, I didn't make it on time, and ended up not getting the job. I ended up sleeping through the first day of my job, and yes, I wasn't allowed back and had to get a new job. But then again, at the time, I was struggling with a sleep disorder. My final exam for Photoshop class during college. I arrived with 15 minutes left. My teacher was so disappointed, as I was actually doing really well in that class. She agreed to let me write it do the practical, but could only do so in the amount of time it took the one and only person in the room left to write it. I finished before him. Maybe he let you finish before him. A flight from Amsterdam to home. That was a very costly nap. Almost cost me more than the night before my flight. LPT. Don't party your butt off in Amsterdam the night before a morning flight. Don't book morning flights out of Amsterdam. I slept through the first 4-ish hours of a 12-hour shift a couple of times. Granted, this was shortly after I got started working night shift, so my sleep patterns were all kinds of fricked up, but it still wasn't fun to have to explain to my boss. He was super cool about it, though. I slept through the first 4-ish hours of a 12-hour shift. Okay, it happens. A couple of times. Oh my. Slept into until 9 a.m. before a 9:30 a.m. state exam. Thought exam was at 2 p.m. Was just sitting down to breakfast when my mother checked the timetable. Left house at 9:20 a.m. to get to school 20 minutes away. Made it before the door closed thanks to my mother's careful driving. My dean sent in a cup of tea and biscuits for me during the exam to keep me going. Scored 95%. Your dean is a freaking legend. I hope you thank them with blackjack and H. I slept through the presentation for my dissertation at uni. It was worth 30% of the grade for that module with a pass mark of 60%, so I felt pretty nervous. Turns out my report was pretty well received, so I got me 66% from that alone. I had to work Christmas Eve one year, so I bought a plane ticket for early Christmas morning to fly home to be with my family. They mailed me a single present so I'd have something to open when I woke up Christmas morning. When I got home from work, I looked at that present. I said to myself, Mom and Dad always let me open one present on Christmas Eve. I could just open it now. But then I decided to wait. I went to bed. I overslept. Woke up about 20 minutes before my flight was supposed to board, and I lived 45 minutes away from the airport. I called a cab to come get me and was sitting around waiting on it and figured, well, I guess I'll open that present now since I can't do anything else to get to the airport faster. It was an alarm clock. I crap you not. A CD player alarm clock. On the day I overslept. An alarm clock I almost opened the night before, and absolutely would have set as a backup alarm. Got to the airport, sat around for about 6 hours, realized I wasn't getting on a flight, took metro to the bus station, got on a Greyhound bus for the 17-hour overnight bus ride home, got home at 9 in the morning on the 26th of December. So yeah, missed Christmas entirely. TLDR. Open your Christmas presents early, kids. Being born. According to my parents, my mom was in labor 4 hours with me and I just wasn't coming out at all. When I did eventually pop out, I cried for a few seconds max and fell back asleep. I literally slept so much as a baby my parents had to nudge me awake for feeding and whatnot. Very similar story. Born 3 days late. When it happened, apparently all I wanted to do was sleep, so I wasn't really making any noise. The nurse ended up having to spank me every couple of minutes to make me cry to make sure I was still breathing. Finally a thread for me. I waited years and years for the perfect time. 11:11 and 11 seconds on November 11, 2011. That's 11 hours, 11 minutes, and 11 seconds the 11th of November 2011. I was gonna make a wish, but I slept. My biggest life regret. I overslept and missed one of my closest friends' graduation. He was okay with that, until I oversleep and miss his 60th birthday party. Now he thinks I don't care about him, although I'm just a lazy bastard. To be fair, graduation is more boring than a plane flight with no windows. Late for a funeral because I stayed up all night watching Pootie Tang. I love that movie and needed a laugh after a heavy, emotional few days. We all grieve differently. Not me, but a person I know. He had his final exam to become a lawyer. His girlfriend, later wife, went to church and prayed for 3 hours straight. He could not handle the pressure and went to the pub and got drunk. When his girlfriend found out, she ripped the crap out him. The result, he had to do the course again and delayed him becoming a lawyer by 6 months. How freaking dumb. If you think you're gonna fail, might as well fail in the attempt. Nothing to lose. My sociolinguistics final. I had an alarm go off at 8 AM Monday through Friday, but this final was at 9 AM on a Saturday, because my school was run by buttholes, so no alarm. Frick. I started day drinking pretty much immediately. I had done very well in the class, so I ended up with a C despite having a 0 on the final. But I still feel really embarrassed about the whole thing. My GPA was crap anyway. My mum shook me awake at 7:45 AM and told me, "Your driving instructor's here." Took me a second to realize that it was because my 4th driving test was 8 AM on Tuesday, not Thursday. One of the rare times me saying crap didn't bother her. In about 5 minutes I had my clothes on, my contact lenses in, and was running out the door. My instructor took me to the test center where I found out I had the South African examiner that failed me on my first and third tests. I passed. Oh man, I made the same mistake. I was convinced I had my last A-level physics exam on Thursday. I found out it was Tuesday when my mum was on the phone telling me to get the frick up. She was on her way to pick me up. I went to the same school she worked in. Failed the exam in my case though. Obligatory, not me. Good friend slept though a final exam. Still ended up passing the class though. 71.2% if I recall correctly. He got super high the night before. Set his alarm for 8 AM. Read. Turned on set microwave for 8 minutes. And went to sleep. Surprisingly smart sober person. Daft as a pile of bricks otherwise. My roommate did this once too. He showed up 30 minutes late to a 50 minutes exam. He still finished and scored a B on it. It wasn't supposed to be a short exam either, but he was just that good. He could probably do it again, but the spike in blood pressure is probably not worth it. I overslept my surprise birthday party. Friends tried to downplay my birthday and just said something like, "Come over around 7 and we'll just sit around and have some beers." I turned my phone off and took a nap beforehand and didn't set an alarm because I figured if it's just a few buddies hanging out and drinking, and I oversleep, it won't be a big deal. It was a big deal because I was an hour and a half late, and there were about 50 people at this surprise party. Half of them left before I even got there. Phone was off so they couldn't even call to wake me up. A surprise party requires a couple of friends to take the victim out to do some celebratory crap while the rest set up the party at the victim's house. Not just hope that they show up. Seems like a poorly executed idea. Like no one's ever been in a surprise party before. A college history final. Didn't actually sleep through the whole thing. I woke up, went to lunch with my girlfriend and had an epiphany somewhere between mozzarella sticks and a chicken wrap that my history final had ended 5 minutes ago. Maths exam. Arrived late. They were nice and gave me more time, but my head was all over the place and not prepared. I passed though. Gotta love these dumb luck underdog stories. My mom once offered to take me on a week-long vacation to the beach. All I had to do was show up and ride with them. By the time I woke up they had assumed I decided not to go and were halfway there. Yeah, I'm bad with this. I usually say, hey, if I'm not up by this certain time please call me and wake me up. But weird insomnia runs on the maternal side of the family it seems, so it's not abnormal to have to call each other for important things. Not technically overslept but sort of. I missed my final university exam because I copied down the date wrong and only realized my mistake after the exam had started on the day, so I've failed that one. Mine was the opposite. Woke up at 5 AM to study some more and eat breakfast and stuff. Get to the lecture hall at 9 AM where we would have the exam and nobody, not a soul in sight. Checked my schedule and see the exam was the next day. Went home, took a nap, studied some more and passed with flying colors the next day. I overslept a final exam my first semester of freshman year. It wouldn't be a big deal, except it was my intro to criminal justice class for my major and my advisor was the professor. I wrote down the wrong time and was late by 2 hours. Ran to her office and begged her to let me take it. She ended up giving me 20 minutes to take a 1.5-hour exam, but I finished it and all ended well. Slept through 2 finals, both M classes on the same day. Ended up getting a B in the class I had the highest grade in. Kicking myself in the leg for that one. And in the other class I got a B as well because I literally tracked the teacher down at his other job to take the test. I got lucky on that one. My mum and her husband were doing it the night before and it got awkwardly loud that I couldn't sleep properly. Missed my alarm for my date. Ended up taking the wrong bus and had to take the train back in a new city. I somehow made it to the meeting place, but the restaurant that I wanted to go together was closed on a Sunday. Thanks Australia. He was pretty understanding about it and surprisingly we haven't gone to that restaurant since then. We're nearly 3 years together. A job interview that was going to allow me to relocate with a huge pay increase. Didn't get the job because they couldn't expect me to be punctual. I am that person that is 10-20 minutes early to everything. I overslept for one of my final exams for a calculus course. Came in 15 minutes late, but luckily I had enough time and did reasonably well. That sprint to class though, man was I out of breath. I had a take-home exam for the last class I needed to graduate. I waited until the last night to do it but accidentally got too stoned and fell asleep. I woke up at 11:40 and the exam was due at midnight. It was an essay exam so I didn't finish until well after midnight. I sent the professor an email begging him to take it for any credit and he gave me 100%. I got an A in the class and I'm graduating this December. It was probably the dumbest crap I've ever done since he could have failed me and set back my graduation another semester. Accidentally got too stoned. Slept in late. Started playing Sims 2 for a couple hours. Realized at some point, oh yeah, my graduation is today. It's happening right now. Better get my sim to the washroom. Obligatory not me, but a guy I went to high school with raged at a party. Passed out and had about 3 dozen dongs drawn all over his face. He woke up the next morning shouting that he was late for his dad's wedding as he rushed out the door. I once answered a phone call at 7 AM, which was for a job interview, 8 AM in their time zone. I had just got off a night shift. In my disoriented condition, I decided that proceeding with the phone interview was a good idea. It wasn't. I spent the summer working in a tourist resort in Greece. So many Brit tourists and workers missed their flights home because they got drunk the night before. Back then there was no Skyscanner to book another next minute flight either, haha. I overslept a microbiology final. I tried waking up every 2 hours to study. The only reason I passed was because she rounded grades. I played football in college. I one time partied too much on Friday and slept through the first quarter. I was like 4th string so it was fine, but still paid heck for it. Work. For the second time in a month. Rigging crew on a major network show 3 years ago. Most important, oversleep. Because that's the day I surrendered and got clean and sober. Boss was luckily a co-worker friend of 10 years and gave me a few days off and a job to come back to. Had placement, internship for uni, and a meeting with the placement supervisor from uni later that day. I went to sleep the night before feeling a bit off. I woke up the next day at 1:10 PM sick as a dog and 10 minutes after the meeting was supposed to take place. I was so sick I couldn't even get out of bed. I was sick for 2 solid weeks. I later got kicked out of that placement for an unrelated reason that wasn't my fault, but this was one of the reasons they gave along with a few other nitpick stuff. Do tell. My own show. We sold out and I was one of 4 comics. I missed out on a good amount of $ and will definitely not being working that club again in the future. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.